Devon Larratt's hook is characterized by its exceptional technicality, allowing him to strategically position himself in ways that capitalize on his inherent strength. Through meticulous analysis of his opponent's weaknesses and strengths, Larratt can identify and exploit their vulnerabilities by manipulating their wrists and hand positions. By doing so, he maximizes the leverage and power generated from his arm, enabling him to overpower adversaries even when faced with physically larger opponents. This technical aspect of his hook technique showcases Larratt's comprehensive knowledge of arm wrestling mechanics, as he consistently employs precise angles and alignments to neutralize opponents' advantages effectively. Moreover, he combines this technical prowess with immense mental fortitude and exceptional conditioning, making him a formidable competitor at the highest level of professional arm wrestling tournaments. Wrist-to-wrist regular hook. It's the most traditional position for the hook. Back in the day when Devon had a healthy elbow, he would supinate his wrist immediately from the start and curl his wrist, while current Devon brings his shoulder forward and engages his triceps to press. The old version used to engage his side pressure and back pressure more immensely, despite his longer leverage, which puts him in disadvantage, and he holds that position until his opponent is gassed out to finish him with side pressure. So it was more of a biceps-driven than triceps. He was more defensive than an offensive puller. I don't think we'll ever see Devon going into a hook-to-hook battle fresh unless he's absolutely forced to do so. His elbows are way too bad for that shit. A lot of hook pullers eventually have to use other techniques later in their careers because hooking takes a huge toll on one's elbows. Even nowadays, Devon has best hook power in his weight category, prefers to top roll, using a hook only when other tricks don't work.
Bleed out the Giants American, and it's one pin to Devon Larratt.
The defensive hook. In 2015, when the match between Devon and John happened, from the first round, Devon gave all of his wrist rotation and went into fully supinated position and got completely behind his shoulder. You can only pin him if you lift his entire body or break his humerus bone. His finger containment is so strong that he was able to hold John's top roll. He would have developed probably the strongest hook in the world. It's sad that he never took rehab properly, and his elbow got completely screwed, to a point where he has turned into an extreme outside puller now. When John tried to pronate through Devon's hook and couldn't, you know John knew right there this guy is a special man. Many don't know this, but Devon was in bad shape in 2015 and was second-guessing his ability to even place, due to surgery recovery. He was telling Neil beforehand that he'd be lucky if he could even give work to the likes of John. That's why he turned toward Neil after his pin and said, "What do you know?" Because he didn't expect it. I wouldn't choose 2015 as a good showcase year for Devon's hook.
Brzenk concedes.
What do you know? It's a devil.
The high hook. Now, due to the pancakes that he consumed preparing for Levon, coupled with the multiple sessions of stem cells, I believe his pain got a lot better, and overall his arm and hand is much healthier than 4 to 5 years ago. That's why he's so confident that nobody at his weight can beat him, and that's why he thought he had a chance with Levon. He just keeps repeating how healthy he is, and starts to prove it by taking short notice matches one after another, pulling bad dudes on daily basis wherever he goes and basically pulling every day. People need to remember that arm wrestling is a painful sport that leads to many long-lasting pains and injuries. Even if you do everything right, which Devon openly said he didn't, especially competing at that high of a level. The closer the angle of your arm is to yourself, the more power you can exert from the biceps. Devon has long arms and fingers, so a low hook would open up his arm angle more. He would low hook if his opponent was weak in the wrist, though. Devon doesn't bench much, compared to other arm wrestlers. The chest is a big factor in the hook because it provides the necessary stability. I believe for this reason Devon used to have problems with deep hook fights. His biceps, in comparison, were one of, if not the best in the world for a period of time in certain lifts. His hand is crazy strong as well. It's just so overpowered in comparison to his chest. Devon, besides being exceptionally strong, understands the physics and angles of arm wrestling. You're not going to beat him by only being stronger than him. It's a high hook. If Devon was to go into a normal hook, he would be at a huge disadvantage due to long levers. If your cup and elbow flexors are strong enough, your chest doesn't get that involved unless you're structurally biased. Shoulder-committed hooks is the best way to hook for long-armed people. He showed after Prudnik and Gennady matches that he absolutely can hook, and he can hook with the best of them. But he no longer hooks the same way. Devon used to be a regular hooker, and formula was the opponent hits, takes him to their side, and only then does Devon start coiling and gaining more and more cup, more and more position, and slowly compromising his opponent's pronation bit by bit until he can pin or the opponent simply concedes. This way, pulling is not suited to health or longevity, as Michael Todd and Devon's own elbows can attest. In Devon's own words, defensive hooking is for suckers. The Devon of today hooks as well, but he hooks not to stop but to finish. Instead of trying to catch his opponent and then slowly bring them back, he is now looking to compromise the opponent's hand, wrist, and position from the go with an outside maneuver and then initiate the hook to finish his opponent when he is compromised. Devon's hook is no longer a defensive move. It's an offensive one. I saw this technique very recently used by Devon in his matches against Dave and others, where he compromised their hand in an outside maneuver before taking the match inside and falling into a hook wherein he already has his opponent's cup and pronation completely shut down. I didn't think Devon would dare attempt this against Dave and Gennady, but he definitely proved all doubts his balls wrong on that front. He utilizes that to bust up and sap his opponent's hand and arm around one. Then all the other options are wide open. That was the game plan for John and Levon. Except in the case of Levon, there was just too much mass and power to stop without getting your arm torn off. So, yes, instead of a defensive hook catch like the past, he's evolved and refined his king's move to initiate the bleed and then coils up like an anaconda with the hook. Devon now is really a master of bleeding his opponent from all angles and from all positions. And so unless his opponent can pin him straight to the pad in one swift move and repeat that over 3 rounds, they simply have no real chance to win. Devon does this type of hook after he sucks the soul of the opponent with his king's move, and sometimes he surprises us with a hook from the very first round. Devon picked the smart strategy of draining his opponent first with his king's move. But how awesome would it have been if we see a fresh-on-fresh hook match between him and other elites? As powerful as Prudnik is, I think Devon can absolutely hang with him in a hook from the first round. Despite that, he didn't went into hook from the first round fresh for fresh. But it's a suboptimal choice. High risk for something getting torn or injured for no benefit other than to impress people. King's move lead to drain him, which for him is a low-risk move, and then transition to hook once he's tired makes sense. That hook seemed like a checkmate move. He is already in a press position, but chooses not to press. He doesn't even need to engage bicep in that position, and the angle he creates makes it very unfavorable for opponent. If Dave tried to pull towards the pad, literally whole Larratt's body is blocking the way. Dave would have to fully engage back pressure just to create some space. Also, Devon can rely on side pressure, shoulder, and triceps to hold that position, and if overpowered, can switch to king's move. Devon's hook usually only comes out either if he's forced into one or if he's secured a press-like positional advantage where he's basically pressing down on the opponent's fully supinated arm, so they have to basically bicep curl up against Devon's upper body weight. He rarely enters into a neutral wrist, to wrist hook. Nothing wrong with that, it's smart pulling.